The Central Iron County Water Conservancy District's purpose is to ensure that water will be available for 50 years into the future, under all gamuts of anything water. So we are here to make sure that there's going to be a sustainable water resource for future generations. This is Coal Creek right here behind me. It's the only perennial stream that flows into Cedar Valley. On average, right now, we would be seeing about 100 CFS coming down Coal Creek, and we're a tenth of that. We're at 10 CFS, that's what that is right there. And so if this was 100 CFS, it would be raging, roaring, super loud. The water would be way higher, up to the level of probably some of those rocks and overflowing into those areas around there being wider. And that's the primary source of water that comes down that our agricultural producers have been using for decades since they first came into the valley. As the settlers first established here in Cedar City, right at the mouth of the canyon, they used the water for everything. In fact, that was their drinking water, the same water that they used to water their livestock, they drank out of. So they had the water diverted through each of the streets, went down through every little alley, and the families would go out with a bucket and bucket their water from Coal Creek into a barrel, and that's what they used for their drinking water. And so Coal Creek has been, you know, the main kind of artery and source of our community since the settlers first got here. From the early 1900s on, as historically as we read, is that there were times of drought and there were times of lots of growth. And each of those scenarios brought on solutions, or how are we going to sustain ourselves in the future. And there's been a long-standing objective and goals to be able to provide for future generations. That's what's always been part of our heritage here. We've got over 126 years of record, and this is a significant drought. We're drier than we've ever been before, and our community is continuing to grow. I don't know if anybody foresaw how big or what the population would be here, but we've got a booming economy and community here that continues to grow and thrive, and a wonderful university, and everything that makes Cedar Valley great. And you couple that with the drought, and we are here to make sure that we've got water and water resources that will not only sustain us today, but in the future as well. Every year we use 7,000 acre-feet more than what is brought into our basin, what is annually recharged into our aquifer. And if we do nothing, then eventually there's going to be some damage that will be done to our aquifer. There'll be compaction and fissures and things of that nature that really will affect us at the surface level, not only our water resources. And so further additional water resources need to be developed and provided. But if we do nothing, we may not be able to have a place for our children and grandchildren to live. And that's something that I think that we all want, right? We all want to be able to provide for that next generation. There are 3 areas that the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District that is really focusing on to be able to make sure that water is available in the future. And the first one is conservation. We've engaged our legislators, and we've been able to develop a lot of resources and pull in resources from the state and federal agencies to be able to do more with conservation. And one of those things primarily is within our agricultural community. Ag uses 75% of the water in our basin, and so we realize that if we can focus on that, we can really save the large amount of water. Agriculture is a part of us, it's a part of our heritage, and you know, they've come a really long way with their efficiencies and these new water practicing techniques that we've been helping them install really is bringing it up to where they're about 95 to 97% efficient. And so optimally, they're using water very efficiently when they're putting it through a center pivot and are irrigating with today's latest and greatest, newest technologies. Right behind me is a brand new linear irrigation system that was put in through some funding that the legislature set aside from the Agricultural Optimization Fund, and that was established a couple years ago. I actually sit on that committee, legislative committee, and we were able to help fund this here at SUU Farm. It's a partnership with SUU and Utah State, and we're really excited about it. What it has is a bunch of different nozzles in between each section of the will lines, and each of those nozzles will be analyzed with soil moisture probes that measure from 1 feet all the way down to 4 feet to be able to see how well each of those systems irrigates. And then they're going to do stress irrigation, where they'll actually put on less water, so they'll go from like 100% down to a 75% or maybe a 50%, and be able to see how well the crops perform in those situations. And so they'll harvest it and get a yield on each of those scenarios, and then be able to determine how much water plants actually need. Each one of these irrigation systems in between the will lines has a different amount and a different approach, and what we're trying to figure out is what system uses the least amount of water, or the most efficient way to use water, and still be able to provide a high quality crop and yield. Irrigation here for crops in Cedar Valley, they use about 75% of the water, and so if we can become more efficient in the way we irrigate, that's a huge savings of water for all of us here in the basin. Other key focus is efficiencies, and that involves recharge and reuse. So recharge, over the last 5 years, we've done a tremendous amount of work building lots of different recharge basins where we're taking water that could not be used from Coal Creek, and we're really excited about the abilities that we have to be able to put water back down into the aquifer. Some of our gravel mines and gravel pits that we have in the area, we've just taken those and put in piping systems or canal systems and diversion structures so that we can pull this water and take it into these areas, and it goes into those gravelly layers and goes down into the aquifer very easily. In the western states, we're all starved for more water, and we are all looking at reuse, which is taking the water from our wastewater treatment plants and putting that to a better or more efficient use. So right now, the water that we have, it becomes treated and then it's kind of sub-irrigated and it's grazed on. But what we would like to do is take that water and bring it and put it into a system where we'll be able to allow an irrigator to idle their underground wells, and so that we can use that water that was kind of being just wasted, or a lot of it being evaporated, and put it to a use where that farmer will then be able to stop pulling water from the underground, which is declining, and use that water. And so it's just an optimal way to be able to use every drop we have and help restore or bring up our water levels in our groundwater drinking water system. Currently, we're right here at what they call the neck of the desert, or right outside of Iron Springs Gap. And just behind me, you can see the corridor, which is gonna go basically follow this roadway 99% of the way up north, up to Pine Valley, which is where our Pine Valley water supply will come from. Just to clarify really quick, just to the south over here is the Pine Valley Mountain, which is just north of Washington County. And so our water supply is going to come north of us in a different Pine Valley. But we've got 15,000 acre feet of water that we'll import through a large pipeline that comes down through this roadway and through the neck of the desert, Iron Springs Gap, and right into Cedar City. The significance of Pine Valley is that it will provide 15,000 acre feet of water per year into our basin. And that's renewable once it gets here, right? So it comes in, and not only is it just 15,000 acre feet of new water coming in, but as we flush our toilets and as it goes back down into the aquifer, there's a reuse component. So it's a multiplier of 15,000 acre feet. That's above and beyond what we don't have. We've known that we need to bring in additional water source. We know that there is a limited amount of source that we have, and that source is being mined. This is the best opportunity for us to be able to bring that source in. It provides us the opportunity to be able to grow, develop, and provide a community where our kids and our grandkids can live here. I'm really proud of what we're doing here in Iron County. We're leading in some of the latest technologies for agricultural efficiencies, and we're leading in recharge and putting water into the aquifer, water that was historically wasted. We're being able to put that down into the aquifer and recharge our basin. And so I'm really excited for what we're doing and what we've accomplished here in Cedar Valley in Iron County.